Kim Tae-ho woke up early that morning like he always did. The artificial sun of New Busan Colony was just starting to brighten the main dome. He could see his daughter Nari already awake in the kitchen making breakfast. She was 22 years, old now, and had grown into a smart young woman who loved fixing machines and building things. Today was special because Nari would graduate from the Colony Engineering Academy. She had worked hard for 4 years learning how to repair mining equipment and maintain the life support systems that kept everyone alive in space. Tae-ho was proud of his daughter. After her mother died in a mining accident 5 years ago, Nari had become the most important person in his life. New Busan was not a big colony, but it was home to almost 30,000 people. Most of them were miners like Tae-ho who had come here 15 years ago looking for a better life. The asteroid field around their home was rich with rare metals that Earth needed for building spaceships and computers. The work was hard, but honest, and the pay was good enough to support a family. The colony had 3 main domes connected by sealed tunnels. The residential dome housed most of the families in small but comfortable apartments. The industrial dome contained the mining equipment and processing plants where they refined the metals they dug from the asteroids. The agricultural dome grew food in hydroponic gardens that fed the entire population. Children played in the parks between the apartment buildings while their parents worked 12-hour shifts in the mines. There was a school and a hospital and even a small theater where people put on plays during the long, dark seasons. Life was simple but good, and most people were happy with what they had built together. Tae-ho had been the colony administrator for 3 years now, which meant he helped solve problems between neighbors and made sure supplies arrived from Earth on time. It was not exciting work, but it was important, and the other colonists trusted him to make fair decisions. He had learned that keeping people happy was harder than mining asteroids, but much more rewarding. That morning, Nari showed him her final project, which was a new design for recycling air filters that would last twice as long as the old ones. She explained how her invention would save the colony thousands of credits every year and reduce their dependence on supply ships from Earth. Tae-ho pretended to understand all the technical details, but mostly, he just enjoyed watching his daughter talk about something she loved. The graduation ceremony was scheduled for that afternoon in the main auditorium. 25 young people would receive their engineering certificates and become full citizens of the colony, with voting rights and profit sharing in the mining operations. It was a tradition that made everyone proud and showed that New Busan was more than just a workplace but a real community with a future. Around noon, Tae-ho was in his office reviewing supply requests when the emergency alarm started blaring. At first he thought it might be a drill or maybe an asteroid had drifted too close to the mining platforms. But then his communication screen lit up with incoming messages from the outer sensor stations. The sensor operator Kim Jin-woo appeared, on screen looking frightened and confused. He said that 12 unknown ships had just appeared out of hyperspace at the edge of their system. The ships were big and armed, and they were moving fast toward the colony. Jin-woo had tried to make contact but received no response to his transmissions. Tae-ho felt ice form in his stomach. New Busan had no military defenses beyond a few mining lasers that could be used against small asteroids. The colony charter guaranteed them protection from the Earth Defense Force, but the nearest military base was 6 days away at maximum speed. If these unknown ships had hostile intentions, there was nothing the colonists could do to stop them. He activated the colony-wide emergency broadcast system and told everyone to remain calm while he tried to establish communication with the approaching vessels. But even as he spoke, Tae-ho could see on his screens that the ships were definitely warships with weapons that could destroy the entire colony in minutes. Nari rushed into his office asking what was happening. Tae-ho tried to stay calm for her sake, but inside he was terrified. He had read reports about alien pirates who sometimes attacked remote human settlements, but New Busan was supposed to be too far from alien space routes to be in danger. The unknown. Ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside the asteroid field. They were sleek and dark with hull designs unlike anything in human space. Strange symbols were painted on their sides, and weapon ports glowed with menacing energy. There were 12 of them, and each one was larger than the biggest human freighter. The lead ship finally responded to Tae-ho communication attempts. The screen filled with the image of a reptilian creature with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. It spoke in heavily accented human language, saying that the colony now belonged to the Vorthak Empire, and all humans were ordered to surrender immediately, or be destroyed. The alien commander who called himself Vorth said that humans were a weak species that existed only to serve stronger races. He gave the colonists 1 hour to shut down their defenses and prepare for occupation. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of New Busan and the enslavement of all survivors. Taeho tried to explain that they were just peaceful miners who had no quarrel with any alien empire. He offered to negotiate and even pay tribute if that would satisfy the Vorthak. But Commander Vorth just laughed and said that human lives had no value except as slaves and resources. The hour passed quickly as Taeho tried desperately to organize an evacuation. The colony had enough escape pods to save maybe 3,000 people, but most of the population would be left behind. Nari helped coordinate the emergency medical teams, while parents struggled to get their children to safety. When the deadline expired, the Vorthak ships opened fire without warning. Plasma beams tore through the colony domes like they were made of paper. The residential section exploded in flames as atmosphere rushed out into space. Thousands of people died in the first few minutes before they could reach the emergency shelters. Taeho grabbed Nari and ran toward the nearest escape pod launch bay. Around them, the colony was dying as alien weapons systematically destroyed everything the humans had built over 15 years. Families were torn apart in the chaos as parents searched for their children in the smoke and debris. The escape pod barely sealed before the launch bay exploded behind them. Through the small porthole, Taeho and Nari watched their home burn as the Vorthak fleet continued its merciless bombardment. Within hours, New Busan was nothing but floating wreckage and frozen corpses scattered among the asteroids. As their pod drifted toward the nearest trade station, Taeho held his wounded daughter and swore that somehow the aliens would pay for what they had done. He did not know how a simple miner could fight an interstellar empire, but he would find a way to make them regret awakening the wrath of humanity. The emergency beacon from New Busan reached Earth Defense Command exactly 67 hours after the attack began. President Park Ji-woo was having breakfast with his family when the red phone on his kitchen table started ringing. The special communication device only rang when humanity faced an existential threat somewhere in the galaxy. Admiral Kim Do-hyun was already waiting in the Situation Room deep beneath Seoul when Park arrived 30 minutes later. The underground facility had been built to survive nuclear war and could house the entire government for months if necessary. Representatives from every major nation were connecting via secure quantum links as the full scope of the disaster became clear. The recording from New Busan showed everything in horrible detail: the alien ships appearing without warning, the demands for surrender, the systematic destruction of civilian targets including schools and hospitals. Commander Vorth laughing as he ordered the murder of 30,000 innocent people who had never harmed anyone. Park watched the footage 3 times before he could speak. His hands shook with rage as he saw children running through burning corridors while their parents died trying to protect them. The president had grandchildren the same age as some of the victims, and the thought of them suffering such a fate made him physically sick. But Park was also angry for another reason that the aliens could never have imagined. The attack on New Busan was not just murder, but a catastrophic intelligence failure on the part of the Vorthak Empire. They had made the mistake of assuming that human colonies were defenseless because they appeared to have no military protection. Admiral Kim activated the wall display showing the true structure of human space defense. What looked like peaceful mining colonies and trading posts were actually carefully positioned observation stations that had been monitoring alien military movements for over 20 years. Every human settlement beyond Earth contained hidden sensors and communication equipment that fed intelligence back to Defense Command. The peaceful facade had been deliberate strategy, designed to make humanity appear weak and scattered, while Earth secretly built the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Human colonies were never defenseless, but their protection had been carefully concealed to avoid alarming alien governments who might have united against humanity if they knew the truth. Dr. Song Min-jae entered the briefing room carrying classified files that contained humanity's greatest secrets. As the chief scientist for the Advanced Weapons Research Division, she had spent 15 years developing military technology that surpassed anything known to exist in alien space. Her inventions would soon shock the galaxy. Song explained that human military doctrine was based on the principle of overwhelming technological superiority, combined with tactical deception. While alien empires fought each other using conventional plasma weapons and energy shields, humanity had developed fusion-powered battleships that could crack moons and quantum-guided missiles that could strike targets across solar systems. Dome. Dragon Fleet represented the pinnacle of human military engineering. 57 battleships, each carrying enough firepower to sterilize planets, had been hidden throughout the solar system for over a decade. Their crews were the most elite soldiers humanity had ever produced, trained in zero-gravity combat and equipped with weapons that could cut through alien armor like tissue paper. Captain Lee Sang-min commanded the flagship, Soul Vengeance, and had been preparing for this day since he graduated from the secret military academy on Titan. His pilots could execute maneuvers that would kill alien crews through sheer gravitational force, while his gunners could hit targets, moving at fractional light speed using weapons that fired concentrated stellar matter. But the Dragon Fleet was just the tip of the spear. Hidden shipyards throughout the outer solar system had been mass-producing warships for 2 decades using automated manufacturing systems that could build a destroyer in less than a week. The asteroids between Mars and Jupiter concealed over 3,000 military vessels of various classes. Earth itself was protected by orbital defense platforms that appeared to be communication satellites, but actually mounted railguns capable of accelerating tungsten projectiles to 10% of light speed. The moon housed fusion reactors that could power weapons large enough to vaporize incoming fleets, while seeming to be nothing more than research stations. Park realized that the Vorthak attack had actually done humanity a favor by providing justification for revealing their true military capability. For years, the government had debated when and how to drop the pretense of weakness, but now the decision had been made for them. The galaxy would learn what happened when someone murdered human civilians. Intelligence. Reports showed that the Vorthak were planning to attack 5 more human colonies within the next month. They believed their easy victory at New Busan proved that humans were weak prey that could be hunted for slaves and resources. The aliens had no idea they were about to face an enemy that had been preparing for interstellar war longer than their empire had existed. Admiral Kim received authorization to activate Operation Dragon Thunder, which would deploy the full strength of humanity's hidden fleet. Every stealth ship monitoring alien territory received orders to begin active reconnaissance, while the main battle groups prepared to leave their concealed bases for the first time in decades. The President addressed the Global Defense Council, explaining that humanity could no longer maintain the illusion of vulnerability. The Vorthak attack had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and the response would demonstrate to every alien government that human civilians were under the protection of military forces they could not comprehend or defeat. Captain Lee began final preparations for the Dragon Fleet deployment. His ships would strike first at the Kepler system, where Vorthak forces were massing for another colony attack. The aliens expected to find helpless mining stations defended by obsolete security ships, but instead, they would meet the fury of awakened dragons. Song ran final tests on the quantum disruption warheads that could tear apart atomic bonds across interstellar distances. Her plasma lances could cut battleships in half, while her gravity bombs could compress enemy fleets into singularities. The technological gap between human and alien military science was about to become devastatingly apparent as our news of the New Busan massacre spread through human space. The colonists began their own preparations for war. Trading stations activated hidden weapon systems, while mining platforms revealed concealed missile batteries. Freighter captains opened sealed orders that transformed their cargo ships into makeshift warships. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake in believing that humanity was weak because they chose peace over conquest. The Vorthak Empire had awakened sleeping dragons, and soon they would learn why humans had conquered their own world, despite being physically weaker than most alien species. Intelligence, creativity, and the willingness to use overwhelming force when threatened had made humanity the dominant species on Earth. Those same qualities would soon make them the masters of the galaxy. The dragons were stirring, and when they fully awakened, the stars themselves would tremble at their roar. Captain Lee Sang-min stood on the bridge of Seoul Vengeance as the massive battleship slowly emerged from its hidden base inside the asteroid series. Around him, 46 other Dragon Fleet warships were also revealing themselves for the first time in over 15 years. The dark hulls seemed to absorb light, making the ships appear like holes cut in space itself. Each Dragon battleship was over 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets of conventional warships. Their hulls were made from compressed matter that could withstand direct hits from fusion weapons, while their engines could accelerate the massive vessels to speeds that would crush most alien crews under gravitational force. The fleet had been training in secret for this moment, using asteroid fields as practice targets and abandoned space stations for boarding exercises. Every crew member had been selected from humanity's best military personnel and trained to fight in conditions that would kill ordinary soldiers. They were as close to perfect warriors as human science could create. Lee had studied every known alien military doctrine and weapon system for over a decade. He knew the strengths and weaknesses of Vorthak plasma cannons and energy shields. More importantly, he knew that the reptilian aliens had never faced opponents who could match their technology and exceed their tactical flexibility. The Dragon Fleet destination was the Kepler system, where intelligence reports showed Vorthak forces gathering for another attack on human civilians. 3 enemy battle groups with over 60 warships were preparing to assault the agricultural world of New Jeju, where 15,000 human farmers grew food for other colonies throughout the sector, but the dragons would not arrive in time to save New Jeju. The agricultural world was already under attack and its population was being slaughtered just like the miners of New Busan. Lee could only hope to prevent future massacres by demonstrating that humanity was not the helpless prey the Vorthak believed them to be. Meanwhile, Tai-ho and Nari had reached the trading station at Proxima Junction after drifting in their escape pod for almost a week. The station medical bay was overwhelmed with survivors from New Busan and the nearby mining outpost at Delta 7, which had also been attacked by Vorthak raiders. Nari needed surgery to repair internal injuries from the escape pod crash, but the station only had basic medical equipment. Tai-ho sat by her bed feeling helpless as his daughter fought for her life, while the aliens who hurt her prepared to murder more innocent people. The trading station was in chaos as human civilians tried to book passage on any ship leaving the area. Freight captains were charging enormous fees for transport to safer systems while alien merchants quietly canceled their contracts and disappeared without explanation. Everyone could sense that something terrible was building in human space. But some humans were not running away. A group of miners from the destroyed colonies had begun meeting in secret to discuss fighting back against the Vorthak. They had no weapons or military training, but they were angry enough to try anything. Tai-ho joined their planning sessions, even though he knew they could not possibly succeed against an interstellar empire. The leader of the resistance group was Park Hyun-woo, an engineer from Delta 7 who had lost his wife and 2 sons in the alien attack. He showed the others how mining equipment could be converted into weapons, and how industrial explosives might damage enemy ships. His plans were desperate and probably suicidal, but they gave the survivors something to focus on besides their grief. Far away from the plotting colonists, the Vorthak Empire was celebrating its easy victories over human settlements. Commander Vorth had been promoted to Fleet Admiral for his successful raids and given command of a much larger force to complete the conquest of human space. The aliens believed that human resistance would collapse quickly once their major colonies were destroyed. They had studied human history and noted that Earth nations often surrendered after suffering relatively minor casualties. The Vorthak expected humanity to offer tribute and accept vassal status, rather than face total destruction. Admiral Vorth was already planning how to distribute human slaves among the noble houses of the Vorthak Empire. The strange bipedal aliens seemed physically weak, but they were intelligent enough to operate complex machinery and docile enough to be controlled easily. Human colonies would become farming worlds to feed Vorthak expansion into other parts of the galaxy. The attack on New Jeju proceeded exactly as Vorth had planned. His fleet dropped out of hyperspace in the early morning when most of the human population was asleep. Orbital bombardment destroyed the main cities within hours, while landing craft delivered troops to capture survivors and valuable equipment. The agricultural world had even less military protection than New Busan. A few security officers with small arms tried to resist, but they were quickly overwhelmed by Vorthak assault troops wearing powered armor and carrying plasma weapons. Within a day, the entire human population was either dead or in chains waiting to be shipped to alien slave markets. Vorth recorded a message for broadcast to other human colonies demanding their immediate surrender. He threatened to systematically destroy every human settlement until Earth itself submitted to Vorthak authority. The admiral was confident that his empire technological superiority would make human resistance impossible. But Vorth had made the same mistake as every other alien leader who had underestimated humanity. He assumed that human military capability matched what he had observed in the colonies. The admiral had no idea that Earth had been deliberately concealing its true strength for over 2 decades. As the Vorthak fleet finished looting New Jeju, the Dragon fleet completed its journey through hyperspace and arrived at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Lee ordered his ships to maintain stealth mode while they studied enemy positions and prepared for battle. The human battleships were invisible to Vorthak sensors due to advanced cloaking technology that bent light and absorbed energy. Signatures. Lee could observe the alien fleet without being detected while his tactical officers calculated firing solutions for every enemy vessel. The Vorthak had divided their forces into 3 groups to guard different approach routes to their temporary base on New Jeju's largest moon. They were using standard defensive formations that left them vulnerable to the coordinated strike that Lee was planning. Admiral Song Min-jae weapons would soon be tested in real combat for the first time. Her quantum torpedoes could phase through energy shields while her fusion cannons generated temperatures found in the core of stars. The technological gap between human and alien military science was about to be revealed in the most violent way possible. Lee gave his crew time to rest and prepare, while the Dragon fleet moved into attack positions around the Vorthak formation. In 12 hours they would strike, and the galaxy would learn what happened when someone made the mistake of murdering human civilians. The dragons had taken flight and they were hungry for alien blood. Admiral Vorth was reviewing casualty reports from the New Jeju invasion when his tactical officer announced multiple hyperspace signatures appearing throughout the system. The Vorthak commander assumed the new arrivals were reinforcements from the home fleet coming to support his successful campaign against human settlements. But something was wrong with the sensor readings. The new ships were not broadcasting Vorthak identification codes, and their energy signatures did not match any known alien vessel designs. Vorth ordered his communications officer to demand identification from the unknown fleet. The response came in perfect Vorthak language, spoken by a human voice that somehow made the alien words sound cold and threatening. Captain Lee identified himself as commander of the Earth Defense Force Dragon Fleet and informed Vorth that his crimes against human civilians would now be punished. Vorth laughed at the message, believing that no human military force could threaten his battle-tested fleet. He had destroyed 2 human colonies without suffering a single casualty and captured thousands of slaves for the Empire. The admiral ordered his ships to destroy these pathetic human vessels and capture their crews for interrogation. The Battle of Altair 7 began when Dragon Fleet dropped their stealth fields and appeared like ghosts materializing from empty space. 47 human battleships suddenly surrounded the Vorthak formation, which had been designed to defend against attacks from a single direction. Lee gave the order for Operation Thunderstrike, and the Dragon Fleet opened fire with weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Railguns accelerated tungsten projectiles to incredible velocities, while fusion cannons created miniature stars that burned through alien hull armor like tissue paper. The kinetic rounds struck Vorthak shields with devastating effect. The alien energy barriers had been designed to deflect plasma weapons and particle beams, but they offered no protection against solid projectiles moving at 10% of light speed. The tungsten slugs punched through shields and armor to detonate inside enemy ships. Vorth watched in horror as 3 of his battlecruisers exploded within the first minute of combat. The human weapons seemed to ignore every defensive system the Vorthak had developed over centuries of interstellar warfare. His fleet was being torn apart by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive and weak. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin led her fighter squadron in the first wave of the assault. Her ship was smaller than a Vorthak shuttle, but it moved with impossible speed and agility. The human pilots had been trained in three-dimensional combat techniques that alien crews could not match or even comprehend. Soo-jin fighters were equipped with quantum torpedoes that could phase through solid matter and detonate inside enemy vessels. She watched her weapons tear apart a Vorthak destroyer from within, while her wingman used plasma cutters to slice the bridge off an enemy cruiser. The alien pilots tried to respond, but their ships were too slow, and their tactics too predictable. Human fighters danced through the battle zone like deadly angels, while Vorthak vessels struggled to track targets that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Dr. Song quantum disruption warheads were performing exactly as designed. The exotic weapons could break the atomic bonds holding matter together, causing enemy ships to simply dissolve into their component particles. Entire Vorthak squadrons vanished in flashes of light as their hulls lost molecular cohesion. Commander Vorth's flagship was crippled when a railgun slug penetrated his engine room and detonated among the antimatter containment systems. The explosion vented most of his atmosphere into space while emergency bulkheads sealed off the damaged sections. Half his crew was dead, and the other half was trapped in compartments that were losing life support. The admiral tried to coordinate his scattered fleet, but human jamming systems were disrupting Vorthak communications. His ships could not work together effectively, while the human vessels moved in perfect coordination as if they shared a single mind. Captain Lee monitored the battle from Seoul Vengeance Bridge, watching his tactical display show Vorthak ships disappearing one by one. The enemy fleet was completely outmatched, and the engagement would be over within hours. Human casualties were minimal, while alien losses were approaching total destruction. The technological gap between human and Vorthak military capability was even larger than Earth intelligence had predicted. Alien weapons could barely scratch Dragon fleet armor, while human firepower was systematically annihilating everything in range. Lee ordered boarding parties to capture selected enemy vessels for intelligence gathering. Human marines in powered armor cut their way into Vorthak ships while the alien crews cowered in terror. The soldiers had been trained to fight in zero-atmosphere conditions that would kill most aliens within minutes. Sergeant Park Jin-ho led his squad through the corridors of a captured Vorthak cruiser, hunting for survivors and data storage systems. The alien ship design was primitive compared to human vessels with crude life support systems and inefficient weapon placement. The Vorthak crew they encountered seemed physically powerful, but mentally unprepared for the reality of facing superior opponents. Most surrendered immediately when they saw human soldiers, while others tried to hide in storage compartments, hoping to avoid capture. Jin-ho found the ship's computer core and downloaded everything it contained, including fleet positions, military codes, and strategic plans for conquering human space. The intelligence would help Earth forces track down every Vorthak military unit and eliminate them before they could threaten more civilians. The battle lasted exactly 3 hours and 17 minutes from first contact to the surrender of the last Vorthak vessel. Admiral Vorth's fleet of 67 ships had been reduced to 12 crippled hulks and scattered debris. Human losses consisted of minor damage to 4 destroyers and the death of 1 fighter pilot whose ship suffered a reactor malfunction. Vorth himself was captured when human marines cut through his command center blast doors. The admiral, who had laughed while murdering human children, now begged for mercy as armed soldiers dragged him from his damaged bridge. His arrogance had been replaced by terror and disbelief. Lee accepted the formal surrender of the surviving Vorthak forces and ordered them taken to secure facilities for interrogation. The alien prisoners would provide valuable intelligence about their empire's military structure and strategic capabilities. News of the Dragon Fleet victory spread rapidly through galactic communication networks. The Galactic Trade Federation called emergency sessions to discuss humanity, suddenly revealed military strength, while dozens of alien governments requested immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. The Vorthak Empire High Command received garbled reports of their lost fleet and refused to believe that humans could have achieved such a decisive victory. They ordered massive reinforcements to retake the Kepler system and restore their military reputation. But other alien species were already drawing different conclusions about humanity, true nature. The peaceful traders and miners they knew had revealed themselves as the descendants of a warrior species that had conquered their own world through superior technology and tactical brilliance. The dragons had roared for the first time, and the galaxy was listening. Emperor Vorthak III received news of Admiral Vorth's defeat while holding court in his palace on the imperial homeworld. The reptilian ruler had built his empire through conquest and had never suffered a significant military defeat in over 30 years of expansion across the galaxy. The initial reports seemed impossible to believe. A single human fleet had destroyed 67 Vorthak warships in less than 4 hours, while suffering almost no casualties. The Emperor refused to accept that the weak mammals he had dismissed as prey could possess such devastating military capability. But as more survivors reached Vorthak space, the truth became undeniable. Humanity had been hiding advanced weapons technology that surpassed anything in the known galaxy. The peaceful colonies and trading posts had been elaborate deceptions designed to conceal military preparations that spanned decades. The Emperor declared total war against humanity and ordered the mobilization of every available warship in the Vorthak fleet. Over 10,000 vessels began converging on staging areas throughout the Empire, while factory worlds increased weapon production to support the largest military operation in galactic history. The Vorthak leadership believed that their numerical advantage would overcome human technological superiority. No species could build enough advanced warships to match the industrial capacity of an empire that controlled hundreds of star systems. The humans would be crushed under the weight of overwhelming numbers. Other alien governments watched the escalating conflict with growing alarm. The Galactic Trade Federation called for peaceful negotiation, while dozens of smaller species offered to mediate between the two powers. But neither humanity nor the Vorthak Empire showed any interest in diplomatic solutions. On Earth, President Park received intelligence reports showing the massive Vorthak fleet moving toward human space. The enemy armada was larger than anything humanity had ever faced, but Admiral Kim was confident that Earth defenses could handle even this level of threat. The Sol system had been quietly transformed into the most heavily fortified location in the galaxy over the past 20 years. What appeared to be communication satellites were actually orbital weapon platforms, while mining operations in the asteroid belt concealed thousands of automated defense systems. Park addressed the human population across all colonies and space stations, explaining the deception that had protected their species for decades. Citizens learned that their peaceful mining operations and trading posts had been cover stories for military preparations on an unprecedented scale. The revelation shocked many humans who had believed their government policy of non-aggression was genuine. But as images from New Busan and New Jeju spread through the communication networks, most people supported whatever measures were necessary to protect human civilians from alien brutality. Dr. Song had been working around the clock to prepare Earth's most advanced defensive systems for combat. Her gravitational manipulation weapons could turn asteroids into kinetic projectiles, while her quantum field generators could create barriers that would deflect energy weapons from entire fleets. Admiral Kim coordinated the deployment of hidden fleet elements throughout the solar system. Shipyards on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn revealed thousands of warships that had been constructed in secret, while training facilities on Pluto graduated their first classes of Dragon Fleet pilots. Captain Lee returned from the Altair 7 Victory to find Soul Vengeance being upgraded with even more powerful weapons systems. His ship would serve as flagship for the largest space battle in human history, while Earth prepared to demonstrate why their species had conquered their own world. The Vorthak Advance Fleet reached the edge of human space and began probing outer system defenses. Their scouts reported massive sensor networks and automated weapon platforms, but no obvious fleet concentrations. The aliens assumed that Earth was trying to fight a defensive battle from fixed positions. Emperor Vorthak arrived at the staging area aboard his flagship Dominator, determined to personally oversee the destruction of human civilization. The massive dreadnought carried enough firepower to crack planets, while his escort fleet included the most experienced commanders in the Empire. The Emperor broadcast a message to Earth demanding unconditional surrender and threatening to exterminate every human in the galaxy if his terms were rejected. He offered to spare Earth itself if humanity agreed to become a vassal species providing tribute and slaves to the Vorthak Empire. President Park's response was broadcast simultaneously to every inhabited world in human space and transmitted to alien governments throughout the galaxy. He rejected the Vorthak demands and promised that any species that attacked human civilians would face the full military power of Earth. The president explained that humanity had spent decades preparing for interstellar conflict while maintaining the pretense of weakness. The dragons had been sleeping, but now they were fully awake and ready to defend their territory against any threat. Nari had recovered from her injuries and was working as an engineering officer aboard the orbital defense station, New Busan Memorial. The facility had been named to honor the victims of the first alien attack and was equipped with the most advanced weapons Dr. Song had ever designed. Tae-ho had joined the Civilian Defense Corps and was helping coordinate evacuation procedures for Earth orbital habitats. His experience surviving the colony attack made him valuable for training other refugees who might need to abandon their homes during the coming battle. The former miner still carried hatred for the aliens who had destroyed his life, but now he also felt pride in humanity's response to the crisis. Earth had revealed military capabilities that shocked the galaxy while maintaining the moral authority that came from defending innocent civilians. As the Vorthak main fleet approached the outer solar system, automated sensor platforms began tracking enemy movements and feeding targeting data to hidden weapon systems. The aliens were entering a carefully prepared killing field, where every asteroid and comet had been turned into a potential weapon. The Emperor believed that his overwhelming numbers would guarantee victory against any human force. He had no idea that Earth military planners had been preparing for exactly this scenario for over 2 decades. The Vorthak fleet included every type of warship known to exist in their empire, battleships that could destroy cities with single shots, carriers launching swarms of fighters and bombers, support vessels carrying enough supplies to sustain military operations for months. But humanity had been studying alien military doctrine and weapon systems since first contact. Every Vorthak tactical manual had been analyzed while human scientists developed counters to every known alien defensive system. The stage was set for the largest space battle in galactic history. The dragons were ready to show their true power, while the Vorthak Empire prepared to learn why humanity had become the dominant species on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. The battle for Sol began when the Vorthak fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune and triggered humanity's first line of automated defenses. Thousands of hidden weapon platforms emerged from asteroids and comets throughout the outer solar system, while gravity bombs turned chunks of ice into relativistic projectiles. Emperor Vorthak watched from his flagship bridge as the first wave of his fleet encountered defensive fire, unlike anything in galactic military history. Human weapons seemed to bend the laws of physics, creating gravitational anomalies that crushed enemy ships, while quantum disruptors dissolved atomic bonds across interstellar distances. The Vorthak had brought 10,000 warships expecting to overwhelm Earth through sheer numbers, but they found themselves fighting an entire solar system that had been converted into a massive weapon. Every moon and asteroid concealed military installations, while the planets themselves mounted defensive systems that could vaporize entire fleets.